High Commissioner Filippo Grandi for convening it, and I thank Switzerland for hosting. I also recognize the thousands of participants who have come together in support of refugees, governments, development partners, the private sector, civil society, and faith leaders. And I thank the refugees here for sharing their experiences and shining a spotlight on the challenges and opportunities to support them as they rebuild their lives. Excellencies, during my decade as UN High Commissioner for Refugees, I had the immense privilege of witnessing firsthand the courage, resilience, and perseverance of refugees. I met countless refugees who survived dire and dangerous circumstances, seeing family and friends killed and homes and neighborhoods destroyed. Many fled conflicts only to suffer discrimination, abuse, and outright violence while on the move. Others, especially women and young people who represent the majority of refugees globally, fell into the merciless and exploitative grip of human traffickers. But at the same time, I saw something more. I witnessed the enormous generosity of many host countries and communities who welcomed newcomers with great hospitality. And let me add, these were often some of the poorest countries and communities in the world. I saw governments bravely upholding international protection standards and providing asylum, often in the face of domestic political pressure to do otherwise. I saw refugees lending their hands and their hearts to host countries, boosting economies, creating businesses and jobs, and enriching the national fabric. These experiences reinforced my belief that protecting and supporting refugees on every step of their journey is a moral obligation, a practical necessity, and an economic imperative. Excellencies, this forum comes at the close of a year of intense political division, conflict, and climate catastrophe, and a year in which record numbers of people are being pushed from their homes, fleeing violence, insecurity, and danger. From the Sahel to Afghanistan, Syria and Yemen, to the DRC, Myanmar and Somalia, to the utter devastation we are witnessing in Gaza. Indeed, Palestine refugees there are enduring unparalleled and unprecedented levels of suffering, and the UN system is doing its utmost to support them, particularly through your sister agency, UNRWA. These humanitarian nightmares have displaced 114 million people this year worldwide, 36 million of whom are refugees fleeing across borders. We must never forget, these statistics represent people, people with dreams, people with hopes, women and men with skills and ideas, children with plans and ambitions, people with the same rights as every member of the human family, to safety, food, water, shelter, and dignity. People who deserve every chance at a better future. But as you have heard during this forum, the resources to support refugees are under enormous strain, especially in the Global South, which continues to host and welcome the overwhelming majority of refugees. Protection and help for refugees should not be a lottery or a disproportionate burden that falls on a few countries and communities based on their geographic location. It is an obligation shared by all of humanity. We must match the generosity of host countries and communities with far greater international solidarity and support at the regional and global levels as set out in the Global Compact for Refugees. And we must create the conditions for peace so refugees can return safely to their homes. Excellencies, this forum is helping to stem the tide of misery. As it draws to a close, it is clear that you have taken the forum theme Action, Unity and Impact to heart. During the forum, delegates, states and various partners made pledges and commitments across priority areas, from climate action to education and employment. These pledges and commitments are built around solutions and inclusion. National inclusion, seen in commitments to give refugees access to education, health care, social protection, and safe housing. But also economic inclusion, shown by the private sector partners here who have committed to employ thousands of refugees, and social inclusion, demonstrated by governments who have committed not only to generous financial support, but to ensure that refugees' voices are heard when decisions are made. Excellencies, this year's pledges and commitments breathe life into the great promise of the Global Compact on Refugees, not only to support refugees, but to ease pressure on host countries and tackle the systemic issues that cause people to flee in the first place. They also give me hope that we can forge global consensus to address, once and for all, the great challenges of our time that are fueling the refugee crisis. From climate breakdown, a growing cause of displacement, to the development crisis, which is starving many countries of the resources they need to invest in social protection, health and education systems, leaving their citizens and refugees alike without ladders of opportunity. And above all, to the crisis of peace in our world today. We need to build much stronger political will to end conflicts and reverse the cycle of division, destruction, and denial of human rights that drives people from their homes and places tens of millions of people in harm's way. Excellencies, by rallying around the needs of refugees at this forum, you are all providing a bright burst of light in what has been a dark and troubling year. In 2024 and beyond, let's pledge to continue matching the courage and resilience of every refugee with our own steadfast commitment to help them rebuild their lives in safety and dignity. Let's meet this collective responsibility together, and I thank you.
We thank the Secretary General, and indeed, as it has been for me for 8 years, it is a comfort to know that at the helm of the United Nations is a man who understands the refugee question and feels so strongly about it. Dear delegates, dear participants, we are now moving to the very last segment of this Global Refugee Forum and of the closing session. We'll hear from 2 more speakers. And it is my great honor to invite to the rostrum Ms. Mutale Nalumango, the Vice President of Zambia, to provide her perspectives on the important contributions that a host country can make to refugee protection and assistance. And may I say, before Madam Vice President speaks to us, that she represents, of course, one of the countries that has been most generous, most open for a very long time, as we will hear from her, in hosting refugees. So it's a great honor, Madam Vice President, to have you here with us as a closing speaker. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, the High Commissioner for Refugees, honorable ministers present here, Your Excellencies, and indeed those that stand here or that are here as part of the Refugee Community International. Distinguished delegates, good afternoon. I greeted myself. I extend my warm greetings from His Excellency Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, the President of the Republic of Zambia, and the people of Zambia. I am greatly honored to join you all today at the close of the second Global Refugee Forum, a platform dedicated to addressing the global refugee crisis and exploring avenues for assisting displaced individuals. May I state from the outset that Zambia remains deeply committed to upholding international refugee protection principles and ensuring effective coordination and data-driven approaches in confronting the challenges faced by refugees and their host communities. Your Excellencies, my country, Zambia, has a rich history of hosting refugees, dating right back to the 1940s after the Second World War. Zambia was one of the first countries that hosted refugees in their hundreds from Europe. And therefore, we bring to the table, as the High Commission has stated, that the refugees need to be part of the solutions or finding solutions to the issues regarding the refugees. We bring to the table that we have been hosting the refugees and we have a history to that. Zambia currently hosts 93,183 asylum seekers, refugees, and former refugees, most of whom are from Angola and Rwanda. Refugees are in designated settlements as well as urban areas. Settlements which are situated in rural areas with limited and, in most cases, dilapidated infrastructure. They do pose unique challenges, such as inadequate manpower, as most employees are unwilling to work in remote areas, thus creating a challenge in effective service provision. Excellencies, to enhance the country's generosity in welcoming and supporting refugees over many decades, the government of the Republic of Zambia in November 2022 took a paradigm shift in the management and protection of refugees by ensuring that the protection of refugees contributed to the economic development of the country. This is being done through a model known as modernization of refuge and host community settlements approach. For effective and efficient management of refugees and host communities' welfare, the approach demands the employment of a methodology that is holistic in nature through a one government approach. Therefore, modernization of refuge and host community settlements approach calls for linkages with national, provincial, district, and world integrated development priorities and plans to ensure the inclusion of refugees, just like host communities, in local and national development plans for them to enjoy social and economic services. In addition, the modernization of refuge and host community settlements approach, holistic methodology, embraces various stakeholders such as the United Nations agencies, private sector, non-governmental organizations, civil society, academia, and traditional leaders. For this reason, our desire as government is to ensure that the support of refugees and host communities will promote self-reliance among the target groups and eventually contribute to the economic development of the country. In this regard, therefore, the model has four major pillars, these being digitalization and enhanced security of the Office of the Commissioner of Refugees that would integrate data to other stakeholders like banks, harmonization of immigration laws, upgrading of infrastructure, and creation of economic and social activities in settlements. Excellencies, this concept emanates from the need to enhance the refugee settlements and hosting areas, which generally do not have adequate social amenities and other supporting infrastructure, and for many years have been left without much development. Having modernized settlements will directly translate into refuge self-reliance, socio-economic opportunities, and guarantee the refugees a more dignified life. It is our government's hope that through this vision, modern infrastructure such as schools, hospitals, roads, and even tertiary institutions of learning can be built in the refuge settlements. We are of the firm belief that this will guarantee a better life and provide opportunities not only to the refugees that we serve, but also for the host communities that have graciously embraced them in their space. It is our considered view that this dream can be achieved through a whole society approach, working hand in hand and shoulder to shoulder with humanitarian and developmental partners across the globe. Distinguished delegates, in the same vein, noting the many challenges that are faced in the refugee settlements, there are hosting areas, among them lack of connectivity to the national power grid. The government in 2022 embarked on a project for the electrification of one big refugee settlement called Maheba. Therefore, I am delighted to indicate that a contractor is on site and has commenced works on a 19.4 kilometers stretch, which will see Maheba connected to the national electricity grid. Excellencies, as regards education, as you may be aware, the Zambian government's 8th National Development Plan has prioritized access to school places for all, without discrimination. Special attention has been given to persons living with disabilities and special needs. Hence, the government's agenda to promote access to education has focused on both the refuge and the host community populations. To this end, the government has removed user fees and now provides free education from early childhood and care to secondary school for all citizens, including the refugees. Excellencies, indeed, education is an indispensable medium for which full integration of refugees into host communities is promoted. It enables refugees to learn the languages, culture, and traditions of host communities on one hand, and to acquire new knowledge and skills which makes them employable or create self-employment opportunities, making them self-reliant on the other hand. To support refugee education, the government has permanently employed and placed more than 213 teachers on the government payroll and deployed them in 3 refuge settlements and distributed as follows: 104 in Maheba, 97 in Mayukwa, and 12 in Mantapala. Further, the government spends about $1,165,708 United States dollars per year on teacher salaries in these settlements. However, to achieve success in education, more can be done. There is a need to construct more primary and secondary schools and early childhood centers, trades and skills centers, as well as staff accommodation in districts hosting refugees. Excellencies, allow me to highlight another progressive development in line of education. In 2019, the government, in collaboration with the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, embarked on the UNESCO Qualifications Passport in an effort to ensure that refugees have continuous access to education. From the project's inception, a total of 44 refugees have been granted the UNESCO Qualifications Passport, a document after undergoing a rigorous selection process. Through this process, the government has been able to ensure the recognition of the UNESCO Qualification Passport by 3 local universities. That is the University of Zambia, which is the main university, Cavendish University, Zambia, and Chalimbana University, who have officially started admitting UNESCO Qualifications Passport holders, refugees. I wish to proudly, therefore, state so far 25 UNESCO Qualification Passport holders have been admitted to local universities, while 10 UNESCO Qualification Passport holders have been admitted to study for various master's programs at universities in Italy through complementary pathways to third countries by means of the university corridors for refuge scholarships. In view of the aforementioned, Zambia encourages other nations to draw inspiration from our successful initiatives. High Commissioner, Excellencies, as we are gathered here to address the challenges facing asylum seekers, refugees, and displaced populations worldwide, allow me to take a moment to emphasize the critical importance of an earmarked funding towards refugee protection and management. Broadly speaking, the global refugee crisis has continued to escalate, unfortunately, placing immense strain on host countries that have generously opened their borders to those in need. As we strive to meet our humanitarian obligations and provide protection to those fleeing conflict and persecution, it is becoming increasingly evident that the budgets allocated to hosting states, especially in Africa, do not portray the actual representation of needs. Thus, refugee hosting nations such as Zambia are confronted not only with the immediate needs of those seeking safety within their borders, but also with the long-term task of fostering their integration and ensuring they are self-reliant. These responsibilities are substantial and come with significant financial burdens. It is for this reason that I take this opportunity to extend our appeal to the donor community, emphasizing the importance of contributing an earmarked funds through the United Nations High Commission through the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, accessing earmarked funds for other activities often pose various challenges, and we believe that unrestricted support will enhance the effectiveness of humanitarian support and effort. While we are grateful for the support we receive from the UNHCR and the international community, we also acknowledge that much of this assistance comes in the form of earmarked funding, which does not allow, it comes in the form of earmarked funding, which does not allow UNHCR and hosting communities the flexibility of allocating the funds to evolving and complex challenges. Excellencies, from Wednesday, 13th December 2023, we have come up with wonderful ideas, strategies, and solutions on how to address the challenges facing asylum seekers, refugees, and displaced populations worldwide. This is evidenced through the pledges and commitments that Zambia has made, and I've listened carefully that pledging is something else, implementing the pledges is another. But Zambia commits that we are definitely going to work on implementation, and I believe other nations, countries will do so. Zambia has made pledges at this very significant forum that is closing today. Despite the numerous solutions that we might come up with, what is of paramount importance, delegates, is sorting out the root causes of displacement. You will agree with me that no amount of funding will cure the world of the complex issue of asylum seekers, refugees, and displaced populations. Otherwise, what we will continue to do each time we gather at events such as this is to deal with the symptoms and not the actual ailments. In conclusion, Zambia reaffirms its commitment to humanitarian obligations, and I wish to assure you that we shall continue to enhance coordination and collaboration with our partners. Further, I wish to call upon the international community to continue its support by supplementing efforts of refugee hosting countries for a comprehensive and sustainable response to the refugee situation. Your Excellencies, together we can build a future where the displaced can find solace and contribute meaningfully to embracing societies. Together, let us pave the way for impactful and sustainable change. Together, we can make a difference, and we can together stop the displacements of people by the way that we behave, in the manner that we govern those that are in governance, in the manner we respond to challenges of the world. Humanity is one. Problems of one refuge. Tomorrow, High Commissioner, you declared you have never been a refugee, and you pray you will not, and I pray the same. And that will happen when we agree to end, for example, the wars that are meaningless, when we choose to govern properly. The Lord God bless you. Thank you. Thank you, Excellency. The Lord bless you. I see passion in your heart.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice President. We thank the Vice President of Zambia for her very inspiring address. I would now like to invite the second speaker, the representative of one of our key private sector partners, Mr. Tolga Önçü, who is the Retail Operations Manager of the Inca Group. And I hope, Tolga, that I'm not saying anything wrong. If for everybody's understanding, I say that the Inca Group owns the IKEA stores. And that's what everybody, I think, that's the name that everybody knows, but you can be more precise than me. So I am so delighted to have you here. The Inca Group and the IKEA Foundation have been phenomenal engines in developing our ability to partner with the private sector, and in themselves have been also extraordinary partners in so many different endeavors. But I won't say any further, and I let you say more about this. You're most welcome to take the floor.
Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests and fellow advocates, as said, my name is Tolga, and I work in managing the IKEA retail business operation across the world in 31 countries. As we are concluding the Global Refugee Forum, I am super honored to be before you and humbled by the collective commitment witnessed over the past few days and the work leading up to this point. First and foremost, I need to share my gratitude to a role model, which is of course the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and the co-organizations for hosting this remarkable refugee forum. The power of collaboration to addressing the refugee crisis has been very inspiring. The collaboration between public and private sector continues and it's growing. But I'm also very pleased to hear time and again at this forum how we all need to ensure that displaced people need to have their place at the table, and this nobody will disagree on. I am here before you today to share what we in IKEA are doing, which is perhaps not enough, but we are trying our utmost and seeing the benefits as well. As we have seen with the COP28, for this to be seen as a successful Global Refugee Forum, the work starts now. It's only actions that will matter to address the critical issue of displaced people. We have always believed in IKEA in the transformative impact of home, how it shapes our lives, our sense of belonging, and our aspirations. But we also do recognize that not everyone has the privilege of a stable home. For hundreds of millions forcibly displaced people around the world, home is a distant memory, a longing and a dream yet to be realized. IKEA's vision is very clear. It says to create a better everyday life for the many. And we started our work when it comes to refugees back in 2015, where myself and a couple of other colleagues were sitting in Spain talking about the situation in the world and asking ourselves, what can we do? How can we create impact? That was the embryo of what we later announced as the Skills for Employment program, which today is our way of increasing employability of refugees and forcibly displaced people. And then in 2019, I had the privilege to participate in the first Global Refugee Forum, where we in IKEA announced our first pledge. And I join you at this second forum, where we have announced our new pledge towards 2027. But getting to this point, there have been many learnings across the board. We have seen that there are different levels of job readiness amongst forcibly displaced people. I mentioned the Skills for Employment toolkit, which is aimed to increase the employability of forcibly displaced people. This initiative is an open source. We have shared it with anyone who wants. And we have shared the lessons learned and how to implement it, guidelines for open pathway for decent work for refugees. It includes vocational training, mentorship, and job placement program, and announce our aspiration to share with at least 500 different businesses. Today, when we came here, we could conclude that we have already engaged 700 other organizations and businesses across the world, sharing the same message, that refugee integration makes business sense. It fulfills labor needs and contributes to economic strengths. Furthermore, triggered by the humanitarian crisis from the wars and climate change, we have evolved our IKEA approach to extend beyond just the Skills for Employment. We have launched our Hiring Displaced Talent Framework, and it has become a new pathway for IKEA to recruit amongst displaced people who are job ready. Already now we have hundreds of candidates that has been recruited into the IKEA family. It was introduced to support IKEA co-workers and their partners in Ukraine and has later been extended to any displaced talent across the globe. This helps them find jobs across the business and support them during onboarding and when adapting to their new roles. So in IKEA we have Skills for Employment to help people increase their employability. Hopefully they stay within IKEA, but if they go somewhere else, we are equally happy. And then we have our Hiring Displaced Talent Framework as a cornerstone of the pledge. And it's not only the direct participants that are impacted by this. There is also the unmeasurable effect this has at the IKEA buddies, at the co-workers, and actually all of us working for IKEA, who sees the resilience of the co-workers that joins us, and through their exchange and support finds meaning at work and learns about new cultures and issues. And today, we have the data to back it up. We can say after 8 years of working, it is not just the right thing to do, but it is good business to be a good business. And now our new pledge is not just a corporate initiative, it's a collective promise to leverage our resources, creativity, and influence to uplift those who seek refuge and rebuild their lives. We believe that all people should be treated fairly and given equal opportunities, whatever their background or identity. We are providing opportunities for refugees by opening pathways to decent work and integrate social enterprise into our value chain. We will help change the narrative by highlighting the value refugees bring to businesses, host communities, and societies at large to transform negative misconceptions that unfortunately is out there. In the business landscape, we recognize that diversity is not just a buzzword. It is a catalyst for innovation and progress. Welcoming refugees into our workforce is not just an act of charity, it is a strategic investment. In talent that enriches our company and communities, it's about creating opportunities that transcend borders, fostering a global marketplace where everyone has a seat at the table and can contribute. The business community can come together with the ambition to work together to ensure that workplaces everywhere are as diverse as the world is and as inclusive as the world should be. Refugee integration makes business sense, fulfilling labor needs and contributing to economic strength. We have studies and research that is backing that up, so I don't need to argue that case. At IKEA, we envision a world where every person, regardless their background, find a place to call home. Refugees are not outsiders. They are our co-workers, our customers, our friends, our family. Their resilience and creativity and strength enriches our business and our societies where we operate. They are the true agents of change, and they remind and inspire us that hope persists even in the face of adversity. Collaboration is the key and lies at the heart of our approach. So my ask here today is very simple. I urge all of us continue to work hand in hand, sharing best practices, and collectively finding better ways and faster ways to support refugees' real needs by listening to them and working with them, not only for them. Living in a situation where they are not able to find work is a massive barrier, and it is important, as I said, not only work for, but work with the refugees. Together, we can create pathways for refugees to integrate, contribute, and flourish. Let us break down the barriers, share knowledge, and amplify our impact. It is not a choice. It is our collective responsibility. And to finish up, during the days here and the years between the first Global Refugee Compact Forum and today, I've been asked a lot by other companies, how can we get started? Or how to have the impact that will solve such a big and growing issue? And normally in business world, we say go big or go home. But I tell them that it is also important that we do something. And that is better we get started, no matter how small or big the thing that you want to do is always going to be better than not doing anything at all. So I want to say a big thank you to UNHCR for your tireless effort, and thank all of you for being part of this transformative journey. as business, governments and society, we have to accelerate our actions today and in a just way for both the people and the planet. As our founder used to say, most things still remains to be done. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tolga, and thank you to the Inca Group and the IKEA Foundation for your friendship and partnership. We move now. We have a little bit of work before we close because we must hear the summary of the GRF. But before I do that, could I ask the Assistant High Commissioner for Protection, Gillian Triggs, who has overseen the preparation of the forum, to join us on the podium. And I would now like to invite my co-chair, Patricia Dancy, Director General of the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, representing Switzerland as the co-host, to deliver the summary on all our behalf.
Thank you, High Commissioner. Thank you, delegates, friends, for being here and for making this forum so special. I have the honor to make the summary of the co-conveners and co-hosts of this forum, of this second forum. I have 8 points, but before that, I would like to thank gracias to Colombia, merci beaucoup à la France, arigato Japan, shukran Jordan, and webele to Uganda, who co-convened the meeting with us. Thank you. And of course, Filippo, thank you very much for your leadership and your changing hats all the time, running, being co-chairing on the panel, then in the plenary, and then in the special sessions. Thank you for your energy, for your big heart, and for your wisdom. Thank you very much. So we were very inspired for this summary. So the first point is, who was here? At a time of increasing and often unresolved forced displacement and deep crisis globally, over 4,200 people from 168 governments, including 5 heads of states, and 86 at ministerial level and above, and over 300 refugees converged at the second Global Forum. This included 427 other delegations, representing NGOs, the private sector, and other multi-stakeholder groups. More than 10,000 participated online from 120 countries. This is a huge success. Both the co-conveners and the co-hosts were honored to serve in these functions, and thank all these and those who contributed to making the forum a success. The forum provided an opportunity to bolster unity and international solidarity grounded in humanitarian principles for refugees and the communities that host them. The participants committed to the substantive and transformational actions towards the 4 objectives of the Global Compact on refugees. I hope you know these 4 objectives. The first is to ease pressures on host countries. The second is to enhance refugee self-reliance. The third, to expand access to third country solutions. And fourth, to support conditions in countries of origin for return in safety and in dignity. The second point is about our ambitions. The Compact envisions that its objectives be achieved through the mobilization of political will and a broadened base of support. The forum was an opportunity to galvanize contributions towards equitable, sustained, and more predictable burden and responsibility sharing. These commitments, garnered through a multi-stakeholder and partnership approach, demonstrated modern multilateralism with enhanced international unity and solidarity. Participants came to the forum from all quarters of society, representing a vibrant group of governments, refugees and host communities, representatives also from local authorities, cities and other local actors, international organizations within and outside the United Nations system, regional organizations, humanitarian and development actors, international and regional financial institutions, parliaments, civil society organizations, faith-based actors, the private sector, media, academics, and sports and cultural organizations. So very, very broad. The third point we make is about the outcomes. In terms of outcomes, the forum provided an opportunity for states and stakeholders to announce concrete pledges and contributions, highlight progress made, share good practices, and take stock of the challenges and opportunities ahead to make a difference in the lives of today over 36 million refugees and the communities that so generously host them. This is an increase from the first forum, and we hope on the third forum this will go down. Over 1,600 pledges have been mobilized through this GRF, of which approximately 1,300 are financial, material, technical, policy and other support, contributing to one or more of the 43 multi-stakeholder pledges co-led by governments and other stakeholders. Now, fourth, the nature of the pledges. Pledging entities have worked in partnership to develop concrete and impactful pledges that span across all sectors, ranging from education to health, livelihoods, food security, climate, data, third country solutions, peace building and conflict prevention, the humanitarian development peace nexus, gender equality, women, peace and security, child rights, innovative and quality financing, protection, and many others. In addition, pledges were made in support of specific refugee situations in Asia, Africa, and the Americas, all of which will advance comprehensive refugee responses through a broadened base of support in refugee solutions around the world. Fifth, the value of the pledges. As pledges continue to be made, a preliminary assessment indicates that burden and responsibility sharing was strengthened through financial commitments totaling over 2.2 billion committed by governments, private sector, philanthropists, foundations, faith-based organizations and others, as well as important commitments to consider refugees and host communities in financing policy instruments and programs. Important advances were promised in boosting economies and communities through investments in refugee hosting areas, support for refugee entrepreneurs, jobs, skilling and opportunities, pro bono legal services, and financial products and connectivity. Matching in support of peace-building, resettlements, and complementary pathways opportunities set the course for a greater focus on solutions over the next 4 years. 6, we look into the future. As global forced displacement continues to multiply and conflicts become increasingly challenging and complex, the forum called for redoubled efforts towards sustainable, long-term solutions addressing these challenges as key to improving international stability and security, and is crucial to achieving the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and ensuring human security for all. Building on the transformative pledges made, it will be key over the coming years to focus on addressing root causes through the peace and conflict prevention and making voluntary returns more dignified and protection sensitive. We will need to further our cooperation across the humanitarian development peace nexus and promote inclusion in national systems, enhanced self-reliance opportunities and third country solutions. Seventh, the unity. Together, we recognize that humanitarian efforts, while not a substitute for political solutions, never a substitute for political solutions, play a pivotal role in providing support during crisis. Every refugee represents a failure of peace and security, and every nation that upholds international protection norms by providing safe and dignified asylum is playing a role in upholding the rules-based multilateral international order. The act of hosting large numbers of refugee communities deserves recognition and international solidarity. This solidarity has manifested itself not only through the steadfast leadership of the humanitarian community, but also through the greater engagement of development actors and international financial institutions at this GRF and the emerging role of peace-building stakeholders. Lastly, the second global refugee has been a groundbreaking moment of action, unity and impact. Our challenge and our responsibility is to maintain the pace and translate commitments into substantive outcomes. We heard that during the panel. We don't want to overpledge and then undercommit. We want to do the opposite. We want to pledge and overcommit and over-deliver. Therefore, we call upon all those who have participated, all of you, in the forum to stay the course. Over the past 3 days, we have shown what this looks like: global and regional leadership, pledge implementation, matching policy pledges with concrete support, diverse stakeholders and refugees as agents of change, converging to reject complacency and to build solidarity, stability and solutions. So we have to roll up our sleeves. It's not over today, it starts. And in 4 years' time, we want to be able to stocktake on progress that we have made together. I wish you all a safe journey back and keep the commitments up. Thank you very much.
We're almost there. Have faith. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you very much for your summary, which is really the official closing. But let me add some reflections, if you allow me, before we completely close. And first of all, dear friends, my thanks go to all of you for participating in this Global Refugee Forum, the second one. I have been very pleased, very proud, if I may say so, to have been part of the rich discussions here over the past 3 days, to have been literally infected by the energy that you have brought to this event, and to have been truly inspired by the work of so many of you. And this work is so necessary for the world, as you know, continues to confront deeply troubling times. During the 3 days during which we have been here, tragically, scores of civilians in Gaza have been killed. Many more have been displaced into an already impoverished corner of an already tiny sliver of land. That violence must stop. That violence must stop. There must be a humanitarian ceasefire now, and like the Secretary General just said, aid must be allowed into Gaza to reach civilians with the speed and quantity that they need and they deserve. Hostages must be released. And And I want to be clear, what is already a massive displacement crisis within Gaza must not turn into yet another refugee crisis. While we were here, grave milestones were reached elsewhere in the world. More than 700,000 people have now been displaced by fighting in Myanmar since the end of October alone, bringing the total number of internally displaced people in that country to more than 2.5 million. And the 7 millionth person was displaced by the brutal fighting in Sudan. Think about that. What level of violence and horrors does it take to force 7 million people from their homes in just 8 months? And with the exception of the host countries and communities, we heard many of them here, that have tried to protect them, to shelter them, to help them, the plight of so many of the displaced has been met largely, I'm sorry to say, with international indifference. I make the strongest of appeals to the parties to this conflict to stop the violence now. And I hope that efforts to bring the parties together, including those of IGAD, will be supported and successful. The state of the world requires a reboot of humanity and energy to meet the challenges before us, including that of forced displacement. And as long as displacement and other humanitarian crises persist, we need an equally large, sustained and urgent influx of humanitarian resources. Humanitarian agencies and NGOs, dear friends, are facing severe funding shortfalls and must be supported to scale up, not down, their responses around the world to save lives and also to be able to implement the very work which you have pledged to make happen over the past few days. And here, allow me to make a very special plea for support to UNRWA. Because the desperate needs in Gaza must be fully funded, but also must be funded UNRWA's life-saving and life-changing programs and operation elsewhere in the region. Please do everything you can to help. But at the same time, do not let that good response come at the expense of other situations. Dear friends, in the months leading up to this forum, some ask whether the time was right for such an event, given that the world is divided and in a dramatic state of disorder. Against this very challenging backdrop, the easy thing would have been for you, for us, to retreat and step back from international commitments, or perhaps to bring your differences and divisions here. Instead, by and large, you came in full force and spent 3 days here exemplifying, most of the time, determined unity. We heard it from Patricia, 4,000, 2,000 participants from 168 governments, and more than 425 organizations came here for this, the largest multi-stakeholder event in the world on and with refugees, networking with others in this field and creating what I feel has become a global community dedicated to protecting, helping, and solving. Over 1,600 pledges were made, as we heard, even more than the last GRF. But what impressed me more than the number of pledges was their quality. the concrete measures and joined-up commitments that you have all promised to do in the service of refugees and those who host them. To ease pressure on hosts, to enhance refugee self-reliance, to expand third country solutions, and to step up work in countries of origin, the 4 pillars of the Global Compact. This has shown the transformative power of multilateralism, grounded in a multi-stakeholder, whole-of-society pledging approach. I'm humbled by these commitments, but even more so by the recognition of so many of you that if we are truly move the needle, if we want to truly move the needle on refugee crisis, we need to work together. I sat here on this podium for 3 days. I listened to more than 100 statements. And with the exception of one clearly isolated delegation that spoke of hypocrisy that I must say lies solely with those who try to block multilateral humanitarian action for political reasons, you all came together with positivity and with unity. Pledges were made by donors, including 2.2 billion, as Patricia told us, in financial pledges. And we continue to count on donors' generosity, especially at this difficult time. Please keep it up, especially when your financial help can sustain good practices and policies, strong refugee protection, and the quest for solutions. Pledges were made by the private sectors, huge ones, innovative ones, as we heard from Tolga a few moments ago, committing over 250 million private sector in additional funding pledges, 1 million pro bono hours, jobs for 100,000 refugees and over 400,000 training opportunities, catalyzing over 180 million in investment into refugee-owned and refugee-supporting ventures and over 6,000 scholarships. Pledges were made by hosts. We heard about this in the very important statement by the Vice President of Zambia. And let's not forget that so many of these hosts, already with major refugee populations, did so, pledged so, even when the refugee influxes in their countries continue to be enormous. Think of co-convener Uganda, having received 85,000 refugees this year alone. Or our former co-convener, Ethiopia, which has received another 130,000 refugees this year alone, and many others. Talk about solidarity. They are not saying no, they're not building walls, they're not earmarking which refugees can enter. Instead, these and so many other major host countries, and also not major host countries, made multiple clear and concrete pledges here at the forum, in spite of so many new arrivals. And what do they get in return? Often pleasant words of praise, but too often the information that funding is declining. Pledges were made by NGOs, international and national, civil society organizations, sports bodies, law firms, faith leaders with a deeply moving ceremony yesterday. Thank you for that. Pledges were made by more than 100 cities where most refugees live and where local authorities are not only including but also working on service delivery, even in remote and hard-to-reach areas. This forum was perhaps the greatest example of a whole-of-society approach that I have seen in my 40 years of humanitarian work. As one delegate said, it is an example of a new multilateralism. I hope this is all right. We also see how a form of minilateralism is at work, with the regional bodies finding solutions to displacement crisis, like the Cartagena +40 process, a sign of solidarity and responsibility sharing and genuine efforts and actions towards the objectives of the Compact in Latin America and the Caribbean. The impactful pledges announced in support of the Rohingya situation, or with the work of the support platforms. And it was not just here in the plenary room, but also the side events where I felt an energy amongst and between you. That included a side event where I spoke alongside the Director General of IOM on the complementarity of the two global compacts, one on refugees and another on migration, born from the New York Declaration, and where speaker after speaker reinforced our messages that we must, all of us, states and others, work together if we are to address the very real challenge of mixed movements, upholding the rights of all people on the move for whatever their reason or motivation, and doing more, not just for border management, but to protect and help people along the entire routes on which people move. This is what we call increasingly a route-based approach. I'm grateful to you all for bringing this spirit of togetherness, unity, and cooperation to the forum, because it is this that is necessary if we are to make a difference for the 114 million people, including 36 million refugees around the world, forced from their homes. But I cannot help but think that we were even more energized by the participation of the more than 300 refugees here, especially the young ones. Actually, almost all of them were very young ones. And here, allow me to ask those refugees or former refugees and stateless people to please stand so we can salute your spirit Thank you. We have to close, the interpreters must go. So we can salute your spirit, your strength, your refusal to give up or give in. Your interventions reminded us what you have experienced and gone through, forced us to confront what refugees need, but also, and most importantly, allowed us to be inspired by what you bring. And what I heard was that, yes, humanitarian assistance is imperative if we are to help, but what you really crave is opportunity, to be included, and for us all to do our part, to uphold our responsibility and obligations as states, businesses, organizations, and as human beings. We heard that we need to commit to our fellow human beings now, especially as we celebrate 75 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. That we protect first and foremost, but also help create opportunities in exile, and mostly work together to solve and resolve your displacement. I cannot close this meeting without a word of thanks to those who have put in so much work to prepare it and help it operate. Interpreters, thank you for going over time. Security. And all the other staff here. I thank, of course, all of you for participating, but here I want to particularly thank the organizers, Arafat, Parveen, Parveen, Anne, Dominique, and your entire teams, and my own team as well, of course. And of course, my deputies and all the colleagues from elsewhere in UNHCR at headquarters and in each of our other offices around the world who have worked so much to support and push along pledges over the past months and years leading up to this forum. Thank you. My deep gratitude goes to the co-conveners, Colombia, France, Japan, Jordan, and Uganda, and their leaders, and especially His Majesty King Abdullah, who came to spend the opening with us. Thank you for your steadfast support and leadership, and my very warm thanks to our co-host, Switzerland, for its faithful support. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't express my warmest thanks to Assistant High Commissioner for Protection, Gillian Triggs. For overseeing the Global Refugee Forum. Gillian, as many of you know, will be retiring at the end of the year, which is imminent. So allow me to thank you, Gillian, for your service and friendship over these years, and what a way to finish. Dear friends, we really need to close. 4 years ago, I concluded this forum saying that we had the makings of a success. This forum has been an engine and consolidated so much of the work done over the past years. It has laid the direction for the coming years as well. It is my firm hope that the third forum in 4 years will be one where we put peace and solutions at the center. I hope that you are able to show how much it will have been achieved. Another High Commissioner will then be at the helm of UNHCR by then. And I'm fully committed to ensuring that the organization which my successor will take over, and indeed the international refugee protection construct which UNHCR oversees, will be as strong and resilient as possible. This will be more possible thanks to the pledges we heard here, and which hopefully will continue when they will be implemented. Let's not have any illusions, however. The road there will not be smooth. There will be interruptions and obstacles, and we will have setbacks caused by storms of all kinds. Let's ensure that we are clear-eyed in recognizing the many challenges that lie ahead, but not distracted and especially not derailed by them. Instead, like our Nansen Award winners, let's address the problem by finding and implementing very practical solutions to overcome these challenges. And let's do that together. Before I close, allow me to say how moved I was by the multi-stakeholder pledges that were announced throughout the plenary from this rostrum. Seeing you stand together, pledge together, deliver results together was not just impressive, but very emotional. So as we close this second Global Refugee Forum, I would like to ask you something. Please join me and stand, all of you, for one last multi-stakeholder pledge. Let's pledge to think about and reflect on the plight of refugees, to empathize with and welcome the exiled, those torn from their homes and homeland. And let us pledge together, all of us, to do whatever we can as individuals with a shared humanity and as institutions, states or otherwise, to protect, help, include, and ultimately solve their plight and help them return voluntarily, safely, and with dignity to their homes. And let's do this today and every day. Thank you all. And I declare the second Global Refugee Forum officially closed.